Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm not too loud. I have the microphone repositioned right in front of me now, trying to something slightly new here, seeing how it works. But in the meantime, at the end of the year list that I just put up, I said that there were still a couple movies out in theaters that I was going to go see. They just weren't going to be seen in time for the end of the year thing. So this is the first of those. And the first movie up is The Edge of 17. Again, this is already over at the Dollar Theater, so it's probably close to being out on DVD by now, which still kind of makes it relevant depending on when you see this. If you're seeing it like a year in the future, probably not. But for the most part, it's still relevant as of the time of this recording. So what did I think of The Edge of 17? It was actually better than I thought it was going to be. I saw a lot of people online saying that it was like a love letter to a John Hughes film. And I can kind of see why they say that. It did kind of have that same feel that's familiar from a John Hughes type of film. But at the same time, I don't really feel that they 100% captured that feel. It's like they did a real good job trying, but there was a couple times, swinging that hammer that they just missed the nail completely, but then came right back to it. So it wasn't a 100% love letter to him. It was kind of its own thing. But it wasn't a bad film. It was kind of an uneventful film, but then again, like I said with John Hughes films, they're all kind of uneventful. It's just kind of like, here's a week in the life of this person. And some days, nothing happens. Other days, a lot happens. And it's usually some type of teenage angst and drama and whatever. And that's kind of what this movie was. So, basically, it's the story of this girl. I believe her name was Nadine. I'm already blanking on names or whatever. But she was always kind of an awkward child. She didn't really fit in. She had a brother who was right around the same age, maybe slightly older. And, the brother was always the mother's favorite, and then she was kind of always her dad's, not really favorite, but, dad kind of protected her from mom's wrath type of thing. Because the mom always praised the brother, but always kind of talked down to the daughter, like she was always the one that was in trouble. She was always the one responsible for everything. And the dad was always kind of there like, it's not your fault, your mom's just has issues or whatever. You're an okay kid. I love you, whatever. And that's just kind of the relationship that they had. So as long as her dad was around, she was fine. She had someone she could fall back on. Unfortunately, shortly into the movie, we find out that her dad dies. Spoilers, by the way. After that, her life is just kind of turned upside down. She grieves and everything in her own way. But now she's alone with her brother, who is her mother's favorite and can do anything that he wants, and her mom, who always kind of has it out for her, even though she's doing it out of love, but at the same time, I don't know if she just sees a lot of herself in her daughter, and that's what scares her about her daughter, or what, but she favors the brother heavily, and the daughter's always kind of at fault for everything, and, that's the life that this daughter lives in. And she's socially awkward, doesn't have a lot of friends. She made one really good friend when she was younger. And as is with these movies, they have a falling out. And, of course, they kind of reconcile by the end of the movie. But, it's kind of like along the lines of... I was trying to think of, I've seen something similar to this before, and I couldn't think of what it was. And it just clicked in my head. It kind of reminds me of the Thora Birch film Ghost World. If you guys have ever seen that, where she had her one friend who was into all the stuff that she was into, but as they got older, the interests were still there, but kind of swaying towards more traditional stuff where they'd always kind of been anti-establishment type of thing. And that's kind of how this is. The main character is still that person, and her best friend is kind of like, I'm still into all the stuff you're into, but I want to experience these other things. They're not as dumb as we used to say they are. I'm kind of interested in them. I'd like to experience things. And that's kind of the fallout of their relationship. I'm not going to get into exactly what happens, but they have a falling out, so now she's on her own again. She doesn't have anyone to fall back on anymore, because after her dad died, her best friend was her rock. And now that rock is gone, so where does she fall? And there's this boy at school who kind of likes her, but she's like, I really only look at him as like a friend. He's kind of silly. He makes me laugh or whatever. And I know he's interested in me, but I see him as a friend. Throughout the course of the movie, they hang out a few times, but she kind of ignores him and is just like, look, we're just friends or whatever. So he starts to accept that. And then she's like pining over this other guy, and she ends up in a rage fit one day just texting the guy a bunch of random shit, and then she's like looking at it, she's like, I can't send that. And she goes to hit cancel, and her phone sends it. Of course the boy calls her back because of what she wrote in it, and she thinks that he kind of ignored all that and is just asking her out just to ask her out, and it's like, he's a teenage boy. The stuff you said to him, of course he's going to say, do you want to hang out tonight? So as things progress, he thinks that it's something that it's not, and she's uncomfortable with it, and then he's kind of like gets upset, and he's like, look, you wrote this to me, that's what I came here for, I'm not interested in being your boyfriend. So she takes off running, and now she's upset about that. Then, of course, it comes to the point where she has a reconciliation with her brother, with her best friend, and she sort of makes up to the boy who likes her, that she's kind of put in the friend zone, saying, look, you're the closest thing I had to a friend outside of my main friend, and that was it, and I didn't want to mess that up, but I like you too, type of thing, blah, 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 blah. And that's kind of the resolution of the movie. The only other really character worth mentioning is the teacher, played by Woody Harrelson, who is like her only other friend, and I think she kind of falls to him more like looking at him like he kind of reminds her of the way her father was, and I think that's why she kind of gravitates towards him. She has like this relationship with him, like an uncle type of thing, almost. She'll go into class early just to talk to him, and she's kind of like sarcastic and snotty towards him, but he understands that that's her way of saying, hey, I like you as a teacher or whatever, and you understand me, we get along. And he gives it right back to her. He's snarky and sarcastic to her right back, and that's what their relationship is, and it's kind of cute, and it's nothing like, it doesn't ever come off as like sexual or perverted or anything like that, like some of these films would make it look like. All of a sudden the teacher's like, well, hey, why don't we hook up or whatever, and then she's like, ew, no, and then it's like she lost that friend too. It's nothing like that. He's just kind of there as the mentor figure, filling in for her father where her father's not there anymore. But at the same time, even though he takes on that responsibility, he doesn't 100% want it. He's like, you're not my kid, we're teacher-student relationship here. And it really tests his patience, but because he actually cares about her, he puts up with her. And it's just an interesting dynamic. I like it. It. Like I said, a lot of it feels like the old John Holmes films, like 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, things like that. A lot of the same stuff. Like I said, it has a lot of elements of Ghost World, but it's its own thing. I mean, like I said, it doesn't hit 100% of that nail on the head 100% of the time. Sometimes it misses and hits a couple holes in the wall and then goes right back to hitting the nail on the head. So yeah, overall, it wasn't a bad film. I actually, like I said, I liked it a lot better than I thought I was going to. I didn't think I would end up laughing at it. I thought it was just going to be one of those passable films like, well, I wasn't bored, but it wasn't good. But no, I actually laughed quite a bit at it, mostly kind of chuckling at the Woody Harrelson bits. Overall, just the whole thing, it kind of had that nostalgic feel. Speaking of nostalgia, I think it was kind of lost in what timeline it was in. At first, it kind of has like a lot of the style and dress that it's like in the 70s. And then all of a sudden, the brother's playing like a Game Boy Advance or something. And it's like, okay, so now we're in like the 2000s. And then it like kind of jumps to where you kind of feel like it might be in the 80s or 90s instead. And then they're like, well, her dad died in 2011, and it's been a couple years, so now it's like 2014, 15, 16-ish. And it's like, what time, well, where are you in the decades? And finally, it's kind of stays established that they do have smartphones and things like that. So it's in a modern era, but it's a little confusing at first what era they're in, because, like I said, the style of dress that appears in the first part of the movie is a very 70s, 80s style. Then all of a sudden it like jumps to the late 90s, early 2000s, and then all of a sudden it's, here we are in present day. So I was a little confused at where it was trying to fit in, because, them John Holmes films, they take place back in like the 80s, 90s. It wasn't until like Home Alone they started doing the like more modern stuff into the 90s and, well, late 90s, I guess, because I was in like 96 or 95, 96, I don't remember. But yeah, so that, have I been saying John Holmes? I mean John Hughes. So yeah, it kind of has that issue with it too, but overall it wasn't a bad film. I enjoyed it better than I thought I would. So what would I give it as far as a star rating? I'd probably give it a 3.5. Like I said, it's not a super great film, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's not quite a middle of the road. It deserves a little bit more than that, but it doesn't deserve to quite be a 4. So I'm going to give it a 3.5. Would it have ranked on my list of top or bottom films of the year? I honestly don't really remember what I put on the top list, so it might have bumped something out there, but then again, it might not have. It would have been low on the list, though, if it was. Like, it might have had that number 12 spot, but I honestly don't remember what I put in the number 12 spot on the list. So, yeah, there's that. So that's it for this episode. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Sorry I had to wait till this got over to the Dollar Theater to get around to seeing it. I did want to see it back when it was in the main theater, but you know my issues if you watch any of my videos. So that is it for this episode. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Again, remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are down there in the description. Click the bell up there. Make sure you're getting alerts when I post new content. And until next time, we'll see you after the credits.